Blog Talk Radio.
About grace, forget blaming race. Are you ready to trace how your DNA was laced? You see what sense it makes when you understand the snake was a being with no soul. Procreating was his goal, yet the serpent had a plan to pollute God's man. Don't say he can't do it. The book of Job can prove it. Can't understand the truth, it became the evil root. Now we see the ancient death and the rest of us got dead. You see the DNA got tainted and the whole world's related. Where the good seed has grown, it hasn't grown alone.
You see the serpent had a seed and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even, yes, she surely did conceive. And out came Cain, who the Lord God disdained. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seed's around, and your DNA's the key, and now you know the mystery.
You think about the family the Bible talks about. Now listen to these verses and learn what it's about. The women of the family that God cared about couldn't have any children without his help, no doubt. They were barren, you see, not 1, 2, or 3, but all 4 and more, and that's for sure. All these women from the tribes had no children in their lives, and here they are by name. Now listen to this theme. We got Sarah and Rebecca, Rachel, Leah to boot, and none of these women could bear any fruit. And new seeds in town to bring that devil down. God did it with blood, not just mud. The name Adam in Hebrew, it's a root word for blood. It means many things, just one means mud. But the Bible has layers, just like wheat and tares, and we're letting you into the original sin.
You see the serpent had a seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even, yes, she surely did conceive. And out came Cain, who the Lord God disdained. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seed's around, and your DNA's the key, and now you know the mystery.
So now you know the truth, that's the devil's type of fruit. Was not the kind for eating, but the fruit for bequeathing. So when Eve was beguiled, she got pregnant and defiled. The new way of life was to work and live in strife. Now the entire human race was headed for disgrace. But the Lord had a plan, he had a son made into man. And that's who we are from a distant planet star, making right what was wrong and to teach it through the song. We are mostly mixed and mingled, not just one group is single. The human race has been infected and it can be detected. It's not the color of your skin or the nation you live in. It's all about the choice. His sheep will know his voice.
You see the serpent had a seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even, yes, she surely did conceive. And out came Cain, who the Lord God disdained. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seed's around, and your DNA's the key, and now you know the mystery. You see the serpent had a seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even, yes, she surely did conceive. And out came Cain, who the Lord God disdained. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seed's around, and your DNA is the key, and now you know the...
For those that walk the light, bridge across forever, strange things I've come to know. Cruising around this weird dream, the sun casting shadows on lonely souls. Unsure sometimes why realities intertwine, your life somehow keeps crossing the dream of mine. Moments of coincidence one can only try to deny. The grander scheme of creation starting to come to life. Elohim, ancestors, seduction in Eden, stories of lost paradise, banishment from the kingdom. Something doesn't connect at all, the rise and fall of man and how it all began. Somehow we got lost in separation, reaching back in desperation to what eludes us even now. Beneath it all, one story. God, angels, heavenly glory, myths of how it all began. The birth of man, Eve and Adam, the consequence of events that all seem random. A reminder of this moment with you, another journey we voyage through, passing the trials of life again. Having grasped the long-hidden secret of dreams, I've tapped the mind of He that created the everything, and now things will never be the same. Maybe now you remember, as do I. The memory fills me with forgotten longing, banished tears raining down my weary, worldly face. Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from across America and around the world. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv, and this is a 5 p.m. Eastern Time Sabbath broadcast. I'm streaming out of Athens, Georgia, or near Athens, Georgia. And it's May 25th, 2013, and we've already quickly entered into summer. And so I hope that wherever you may be, you find yourselves wrapped in the warm embrace of a pleasant and beautiful day. And I hope that, like myself, you recognize the miracle of each moment and the blessing that we all share in just having a chance to wake up to a new day, to feel the breath of the wind and the sun bearing down upon our faces and our bodies, and to watch the soft parade begin anew with people getting ready for work or school, or, actually it's the weekend, so most people are having at least 2 days to take some time to enjoy life and to envelop themselves in the pleasures of it. Myself, I've come to recognize that really each moment, no matter where you are, that it's an experience, a piece of paradise, and that it should not be overlooked, that all things are sacred, and that the experience of them are true blessings, and that we are so, so, so blessed by the Father and by the Son. And most people have not the time nor the priority to take a moment to smell the roses, so to speak, and to take in the blessing of this moment and all the others that we are entitled as the sons of God coming into this plane of existence, into this field of experience, into this fallen state of form, into this fallen world where we can experience the duality of both heaven and hell, good and evil, pain and pleasure, and that a large part of what that reality is depends upon our own focus, our energy, our intent, and how we perceive the world. And so I can only hope that each one of you out there are blessed to experience, and that you feel the joy that I receive from just bearing witness to the creation and watching the unfoldment of another day. So wherever you may be, may the Father and the Son bless you and watch over you, protect you and your family, and help you to come to discernment on all these things, so that you can feel the way that I feel about creation, the Creator, and of being a creature within it all. The poem that I read, for those that might be interested in some of my previous books, my first 3 books were poetry books, which I wrote about my experience in seeking the divine, and I basically grasped those various moments in prose and poetry, utilizing free verse and also rhyme couplets to capture the experience of wherever I was at that time and the things that I came to know, because those early years were very formative in my life and in bringing me to who I am now. And so I actually share in this next book, Skyfall, Angels of Destiny, 15 of those poems from my earlier books. My first one looks somewhere different. My second, When the Evening Dies, and my third book, A Different Way of Being. I share different poems at the end of the chapters to kind of highlight the things that I'm writing about now, because I'm basically, remembrance has to do with a large part of what I was doing during that time and space in those years when I was living in a van and traveling across the country and staying in different national and state parks and just spending time with Spirit and seeking out the Father, the Creator of us all, and trying to come to know Him better, and also why I was here, what all of this was about, and the higher questions for our reasons and of being here. And so a lot of that, I share a lot of my personal testimony and even tell my entire story of really how it is that I came to where I am now and how I came to understand the things that I do. And so, which is something that I haven't done a lot of in the last 2-3 books that I've published, beginning with Lucifer, father of Cain, Awaken to the New World Order, and also Sons of God, Who We Are While We're Here. Most of that is a collective of different scriptures, many extra biblical books and quotations from sources that most people have not heard about and never had a chance to read. And all of that was to verify the premise and the topic of whatever it was that I was writing about at the time. The fourth book specifically about the subject that we're going to be going into today, with the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. I certainly will not be able to bring the fullness of all that I had written about in that book, but I will give, especially the new listeners and the new readers, those that are interested in this topic, that have been scared by the world, to avoid it really like the plague, because so many are afraid of this information, thinking that if you are to think this way or to embrace this revelation in its fullness and allow it to be truth for you, that somehow you're going to be condemned to hell because of it. And this knowledge has really no bearing on salvation at all. Whether you see it this way or not, really it's just a different perspective on some of the things that I consider to be veiled and to be hidden. And in fact, it's my opinion that what I'm going to be talking about today is one of the secrets that has been kept hidden since the foundation of the world, as Christ spoke about in Matthew chapter 13, which is one of the passages and one of the chapters that we will be looking at in detail to highlight this story and to bring people up to par on this revelation. Because it seems like many individuals are now coming and being led to this discernment by the Father and the Son. And at the very end of the show, I'm going to share something that is very, very profound, and you can confirm it for yourself, but it's something that the Father and the Son had led me to after the publication of my fourth book, which absolutely, in my mind, without question or doubt, confirmed the premise of all that I had written about within the scope of that work. And so we're going to begin with and I want to say hello to all those that have joined us on this Sabbath, that have taken the time to be with us and to fellowship with us, especially for all of the new individuals like Sea Tiger and Sherry, and of course we have a lot of the my old friends that have been followers of this ministry for quite a long time now. Just want to give a quick shout out to For Fun and Jazz, John. We have other new listeners, which I can't see the name, but Son of Yahweh, Susan, Truth Now, Watcher Ruth, and all those that will come to join us as we continue on in the premise of this show. I appreciate all of you, and I send my love out to all of you, and I ask that that the Father watch over all of you as well. All right, going into this information, the reason why I want to start with Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, is because every time people that are new to this information, they always bring up this particular passage as being, clearly pointing to the fact, what they consider the fact that Cain was a child of Adam. And even though, everything else is saying otherwise, they will hold on to this one particular scripture in explaining or asserting that Cain truly was a child of Adam. But if you look at what is written in Genesis chapter 4:1, and then apply it to all of the other things that are contained, and what I'm talking about here is the knowledge that is just within the canon of the Old and the New Testament, the King James Version of the Bible. I am, in this moment, excluding all of the other books that are found within, the extra-biblical sources, all those things that I have cited, that I have brought out, which also verify the premise of my fourth book. And the reason I want to focus on this is because if you look at how Genesis 4:1 is written, it says this. It says, "And Adam knew Eve his wife, semicolon." Now that semicolon is very important, and when I allude to some of the other outside sources, you will see why. Semicolon, "And she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." And verse 2, "And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground." All right, this semicolon in this particular passage has been kind of butchered in order to give the false pretense that Adam was the father of Cain. And I'm going to verify this for you by alluding to some, like I said, other outside sources. And for those that want to know more about this, I would recommend, getting my book, Lucifer, Father of Cain. I'm certainly not asking people to get it in order to, profit off of it. If you want to email me and ask for a free PDF copy, I would be glad to send that to you. Not asking in any way for people to, buy my books in order to get this information, especially for those that, don't have the money to put forth for this information. Certainly just email me. I will be glad to send you electronic copies of any of, my books, specifically Lucifer, Father of Cain, and also Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here. Because my wanting to share this information with you has nothing to do with money at all. So, and for those that are interested, again, as I said, just email me at zengarcia2010@gmail. com, and I'll be glad to get you an electronic copy of either of those books. All right. First, let's look at what it says in the Wikipedia about the semicolon. The semicolon was established, founded, and created by an Italian printer named Aldus Mantius the Elder, who established the practice of using the semicolon to separate words of opposed meaning and to indicate interdependent statements. Interdependent statements. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, semicolon, is completely separate and interdependent and an opposed meaning to the next part of the verse, which says, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And in order to verify this, I'm going to read what are called the Targums. From the Targums. And the Targums, for those that have never heard about them or read about them, are different language translations, specifically the Babylonian Targum. These books were read side by side in the synagogue and became necessary when the Hebrew Israelites were taken into the exile of Babylon, and this includes Daniel, Daniel and the other two that were thrown into the fire for believing in and worshiping the Most High God. And so these translations became necessary because during the time of their exile and their confinement, their oppression in Babylon, only the elders retained knowledge of how to write, understand, and read Hebrew. All of the other people of the Israelite nation, they assimilated what was the language of those that they found themselves living in. And so they assimilated the languages of that day, and so it became necessary by the priest, and you know how dedicated to the interpretation the priests were in that day and age. Even when they translated it into other languages, it was done with, numerical certainty and also in language certainty, and even if there was one vowel or one, because the Hebrew language, the 22 letters also have numerical value. And so they were able to count up, and it had to equal a certain amount, or those scriptures would be thrown out. And so they were very careful and very precise in their interpretation. And so the Targums, which became these different language translations, they were read side by side in the synagogue with the Hebrew Torah. And it was done so that the people and the lay people that were, the bulk of and the masses of the Hebrew nation could understand what was being said and could follow along with the priests and the elders. And so reading these different language translations, which are very precise in what was their interpretation, you will get a full understanding of what has been excluded and what has been hidden from the Genesis 4:1 passage found in our King James Version of the Bible. And so I'm going to read a couple of those interpretations and give you an idea of what they say. And when you read them, they will bring to light and to detail what this passage is actually saying and what is being referenced in Genesis chapter 4:1 of the King James Version of the Bible. From the Palestinian Targum of Genesis 4:1, it says this: And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain, and she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord, period. Second verse. And she added to bear from her husband, Adam, his twin, even Abel. All right, so let's look at this verse and see what has been excluded from Genesis 4:1 of the King James Version of the Bible to get a fuller meaning of what is being referenced in this particular passage. In the King James Version, again, it says, And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. All right, going to the Palestinian Targum, it says this again. And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, this part has been left out, and she conceived and bare Cain, And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. She added to bear from her husband, Adam, his twin, even Abel. So in the first verse in the Targum, it says that Hava, Adam's wife, desired the angel. What angel was that? That angel was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, whom we know as Samael or Satan or Lucifer, the fallen cherub, the Nakash, the serpent of Genesis chapter 3, who is the guardian, the angel that was supposed to protect the mercy seat of the Lord, but instead deceived Adam and Eve, and according to this particular text, says Hava desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain. So the result of her having desired this angel was that she conceived and bare Cain. And in the second verse, she says, she added to bear from her husband, Adam, his twin, even Abel. So in the first verse, we see that the desire of the angel led to the conception and the birth of Cain. And that's why she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. So Cain was in the likeness of the angel. And then the next passage, she says, I have added to bear from her husband, Adam, his twin, even Abel. And so Abel was the result of her having repeated this carnal act with her husband, her lawful husband and partner, Adam, and that the result of that pregnancy, that conception, was the birth of Abel. All right, now I'm going to bring out one other Targum, the Aramaic Targum, and this one gives even more precision to the passage and details even more precisely that which I had just read from, to give you understanding of what Genesis chapter 4:1 in the King James Version of the Bible is actually saying and alluding to. In this Targum, the Aramaic Targum, it says this: And Adam knew his wife Eve, who was pregnant by Samael, who's the angel of death, Satan, and she conceived and bare Cain. And he was like the heavenly beings and not like earthly being. And she said, I have gotten a man from the angel of the Lord. And then the second verse, and she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Abel. And so you see, in this verse, it brings even more clarity to who the angel was that she had desired, and how her desiring of this angel, that her beguilement and her deception and being led astray led to the conception and birth of Cain. One more time. And Adam knew his wife Eve, who was pregnant by Samael, and she conceived and bare Cain, and he was like the heavenly beings and not like earthly beings. So, that's the Aramaic Targum, the Targum of Jonathan, Genesis 4, verse 1 and 2. Now, before we leave the Targums, I want to touch upon two other passages which also give confirmation to what I just told you, and they also bear witness to this particular knowledge and to the premise of this revelation. And I'm going to go to verse chapter 5, which in our King James Version of the Bible is where the genealogy of Adam begins. Because chapter 4 is actually the genealogy of Eve and Satan, or Samael, beginning with the firstborn of that particular bloodline and lineage, Cain. So chapter 4, even in the King James Version of the Bible, is a description of the bloodline, the lineage of Satan and Eve, beginning with Cain, and then continuing on with those children and the patriarchs that are connected to and tied to his line. In verse chapter 5, in the Targums, it says this: This is the book of the genealogy of man. In the day that the Lord created man, in the likeness of the Lord he made him. Male and female he created them, and blessed them in the name of his word. He called their name man in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat Sheth, who had the likeness of his image and of his similitude. For before had Hava born Cain, who was not like to him, and Abel was killed by his hand. And Cain was cast out, neither is his seed genealogized in the book of the genealogy of Adam. But afterwards there was born one like him, and he called his name Sheth. And the days of Adam after he begat Sheth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. All right, just to emphasize a few passages here. Chapter 5 is about the genealogy of Adam, beginning with Sheth, because Abel was killed by his brother Cain. And so if Cain was the firstborn of Adam, he would be found in verse 1 of chapter 5, or in the main first part of chapter 5, which details the lineage of Adam, beginning again with Sheth, or who we know as Seth. emphasizing just a couple lines, and then we'll move on. And begat Sheth, who had the likeness of his image and of his similitude. For before had Hava born Cain, who was not like to him, because he was not of him. And Abel was killed by his hand. And Cain was cast out, neither is his seed genealogized in the book of the genealogy of Adam. But afterwards there was born one like him, and he called his name Sheth. So there, in this particular passage, you find again reference to how Cain was not of Adam and was not of his likeness or his similitude, and nor was he similar in likeness to his character and nature. That's why Cain was a murderer, a liar, and a deceiver, because he followed after the character and the nature of his father, Satan, the devil, the Nakash of Genesis chapter 3, who lied to Adam and Eve in order to persuade them to commit this act, which caused them to lose their bright nature, to lose their immortality, and to be cast out of the paradise of the Lord into the wilderness of the earth under the oppression and authority of Satan and the fallen angels. And that's why it is we find ourselves in flesh form now. All right, one other quick verse to bring emphasis to this particular. I want to also address something, because I see Sea Tiger saying "Hallelujah," and I want to warn those of you that don't understand what that means. Hallel, Hallel, is Latin for Lucifer. And so when you say Hallelujah, you're basically saying Lucifer is God. And I don't want you to believe me on this. I want you to look this up for yourself and to be wary, to be careful of, worshiping, because it's basically idolatry. Look it up for yourselves. There's many articles about this on Google. You can keyword search this in the different internet search engines. Most people don't see Tiger, and don't feel bad. There's many churches and many people that still do that, but I don't want you to participate in idolatry, and I don't want you to be praising Lucifer. So just wanted to warn you about that. And don't believe me, look that up for yourself. And when people say Hallelujah, I basically say Hallel is not Yah, because he's not God. And I know a lot of people do that out of habit, as Watcher Ruth just stated. A lot of people do that. I have some friends that I consider to be very wise and and very advanced in their knowledge that still do that. Now, Hallel, Allelu, is a different word, has a different meaning. But Hallel, that's Lucifer. The name Hallel is in Isaiah chapter 14 tied to Lucifer. So look that up for yourself. All right, continuing on. This particular passage is from the Gospel of Philip, and it will also bear witness to the things that I just told you about, and will give verification of this information. And this can only be interpreted in this particular way. The passage says this. Oh, and Sea Tiger asked me where she can get a copy of the Targum. Well, I was going to post a link into the chat room connected to where you can find these Targums, but this particular website has since gone down. But I have a full copy of it, and so for those of you that are interested in it, again, just email me, zengarcia2010@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to send you an electronic copy, a Word document of the Palestinian and the Aramaic Targum, so you can read them for yourself in their entirety. And it seems like you can't find this information on the web anymore. And I think that's not by, not mistake that you can't find this information anymore. All right, continuing. This particular passage says this: He who has been created is beautiful, but you would not find his son's noble creation. If he were not created, but begotten, you would find that his seed was noble. But now he was created and he begot. What nobility is this? First, adultery came into being, afterward, murder. And he was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. And so he became a murderer, just like his father, and he killed his brother. This is from the Nag Hammadi Codices, which were found in 1946. It's from a book called The Gospel of Philip. Now I'm going to explain this particular passage, and once you understand and have discernment on what is being spoken about here, you will see how there's no other way to interpret this particular passage other than the way that I'm about to explain it to you. In the first line it says, He who has been created is beautiful, but you would not find his son's noble creation. Now, this line is referencing Lucifer, just like as it says in Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah chapter 14, speaking about Lucifer prior to his fall from the first estate, how he was wiser than even Daniel, and that he was the most beautiful created of archangels, and that because of his vanity it caused him to fall, and that iniquity was found within him. And so it's referring to Lucifer in this first passage. And then it says, you would not find his son's noble creation. If he were not created, but begotten, you would find that his seed was noble. This second line is referencing the fact that Lucifer was an angel created by the Most High and by the Son, and that he was never supposed to have children. That angels, are not supposed to procreate with the daughters of humanity and not supposed to have children with them. So again, it says, if he were not created but begotten, meaning that if he were not created as an angel but begotten like a man, meaning born of woman, you would find that his seed was noble. So it's saying in the second line that if he were not created as an angel but begotten like other children of men, that his seed would be noble, meaning that they would be of regular, natural, human-like beings, and not hybrid children because of the fornication and the mixture, just as it was in Genesis chapter 6, when the sons of God mated with the daughters of humanity and created a race of giants. And these race of giants became cannibals. They started to drink the blood of humanity, and they were excluded from salvation. After their destruction in the flood, they became wandering demonic spirits that needed bodies to possess in order to hold form within this physical plane of existence. So, continuing. But now, third line, but now he was created and he begot, meaning that he was an angel and he had children. Next line. What nobility is this? Meaning that his act was an act of abomination, and it was not a noble gesture, not a beautiful and sacred act of making love like it is between a man and a woman that are both natural human beings that are given in marriage, and that their act of love leads to what is termed here as nobility, meaning that it leads to the birth of a child, which for those that have witnessed is the most incredible miracle that, that the Father, one of the most incredible things that the Father has blessed us as humans to be able to be part of and to bear witness to turn love into a physical child. Now that's truly a miracle. That's a procreative act that is absolutely noble as being described in this particular passage. So the next line, it says, what nobility is this? Meaning that his act was against the laws of nature. And then it says, first adultery came into being. Afterward, murder. Now, what adultery was that? His seduction of Eve, his beguilement of Eve in garden paradise is what led to murder, because the result of that fornication and that adultery was that Cain was born. So his deceiving Eve and beguiling her and leading her astray in fornication was the first adultery that had ever been, and that act led afterward to murder, because it was Cain that killed his brother Abel. Next line. And he, meaning Cain, was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. And so he became a murderer, just like his father. And he killed his brother. Indeed, every act of sexual intercourse which has occurred between those unlike one another is adultery. All right, I'm going to see if I can post this whole passage into the chat room so you can take a closer look at it. And again, it is from the Gospel of Philip. Sea Tiger, that's a really good question, and other people have asked me that same thing. How did Satan murder? He murdered by leading Adam and Eve astray, causing them to lose their immortality and to be born in flesh form, because that was basically the beginning of death. And so he really is responsible for murdering all of us, because all of us at some point are going to succumb to death. That's why he's called the angel of death. And that's why he was a murderer. All right, let me post the second part of this, and then we'll go on. I'm glad you asked that question, because somebody else just asked me about that not long ago. All right, one last part of the passage. And then we'll continue on. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to actually cover all that I have for you today because I want to absolutely spend some time on the revelation that the Lord led me to confirm all of this for you. And so when we get to, I'll spend 10 more minutes on something else, and then we'll spend the last 30 minutes on that particular part. Let's quickly go to Matthew chapter 13. Oh, actually, I want to bring this up to you real quick. If you go to Luke chapter 3, verse 21 through 38, in Luke chapter 3, it gives the lineage of Christ going all the way back from, where he's being baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist, and then it speaks about his lineage and mentions all of the patriarchs going all the way back to Adam. Luke chapter 3, verse 21 through 38, you will see that Cain is also excluded from this particular verse, meaning that Christ, as the seed of the woman, was not from Cain's line and lineage, and that Cain and his bloodline, they represent the seed of the serpent. All right. I'm not going to cover all of Matthew chapter 13. Please read it in its entirety, because if you read it with this knowledge in mind, you will see exactly what Christ is trying to reveal to the masses in parable form, and also to the apostles and to his disciples once he sends the crowds away. Because they ask him specifically to explain to him the parable of the wheat and the tares. I'm going to begin with verse 24, and then we'll read one more other part of this, and then we're going to continue on. In verse 24, it says, "Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." So this parable is basically explaining the condition and the circumstance of the world today, and how we find ourselves in the duality of knowledge of good and evil, and that there are on this planet two bloodlines, two lineages, one connected to Cain through the devil, and the other connected to Seth through Adam. And that it was an enemy that went into garden paradise and sowed the tares. That enemy is Satan, Lucifer, the fallen cherub, Samael, as referenced in the Targum, and the devil, and that he is responsible for sowing the tares, and that the Father and the Son have allowed both to grow up together until the harvest, and that harvest is soon coming. Now, real quickly, one other passage, because I want to talk about the Revelation. In verse 34, it says this: "And these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world." So this knowledge, this information, the revelation that there are two different bloodlines, that there's a seed of the serpent and a seed of the woman, this information is considered by our Lord and our King, Yahushua, Savior, Messiah, the Christ, as being one of those things. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. And which it truly has been. Because it's still kept secret. Most people still do not know about this revelation. All right. Now, the very next verse, verse 36. Pay attention to this, because here is where Christ sends the multitude away. And so he's going to explain to his disciples exactly what he means by the parable of the wheat and the tares. It says this: "Then Jesus sent the multitude away. He went into the house. His disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy," here it goes again, is the reference to the enemy that sowed the tares. "The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear." So here Christ specifically is telling you, and this is after, remember, this is a little secret. This is a secret hidden since the foundation of the world that he has been telling the masses in parable form. It says earlier in the passage, "I speak to them in parable, for they see not, they hear not, neither do they understand." So here he sends away the multitudes, and he tells his disciples exactly what he means without any kind of metaphor or illusion. He says it straight out, that the devil is he that is the enemy that is responsible for sowing the tares. And then at the end of the passage it says, Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. All right. Now, what I want to do, kind of finish this particular story up with, is what the Father had led me to in confirming this for me after the publication of my fourth book, Lucifer, Father of Cain, that I published in April of 2010. And you can do this for yourself. Matter of fact, I want you to follow along, and I want you to do this for yourself and not to believe me, but to verify exactly what I'm talking about here. And what I'm going to be talking about is a Bible code, which I found after writing this book, and the Father wanted me to verify this information. Oh, hold on one second. I've got to get the exact keywords for you so you can search this for yourself. And just so you know, this that I'm about to tell you is also part of, it's the very last chapter in my new book, Skyfall, Angels of Destiny. And I write about this information that I'm about to share with you now. All right, let me get the keywords. Go to BibleCodeWisdom.com. BibleCodeWisdom. I'm going to post the link in the chat room so that those of you that have access to your computer, you can follow along exactly with what I'm about to be referencing here. Go to this particular, because for those that are interested, this is an amazing tool that I'm about to share with you. BibleCodeWisdom.com allows those of us that are not well-versed in Hebrew, that cannot translate the different words from English to Hebrew and from Hebrew to English. It will allow you to search the Torah and the Old and New Testament for Bible codes in English, which is just an amazing tool. And it's totally free. They've made it completely where you don't have to download any software. You don't have to pay any kind of subscription fee. You can just go to that particular website and you can search out this information or other information. You can look for whatever it is that you want in these particular texts and utilizing English. All right. Now go to BibleCodeWisdom.com and I want you to type in these particular keywords. The keywords I'm talking about, I'm posting them there in the chat room. In the search bar, at the very top of the page, type in GOAT, G-O-A-T, Esau, E-S-A-U, Cain, C-A-I-N, Devil, D-E-V-I-L, Son, S-O-N, Seed, S-E-E-D, Fruit, F-R-U-I-T, Tree, T-R-E-E, and Tear, T-A-R-E, and hit enter. Now, what you will find is that not only are all these keywords found in the matrix and in the Bible codes, but you will find that there are actually seven different matrices associated to this particular search. And so the Father has encoded into the Bible codes this matrix 7 individual times. And for those that don't know about the numerology, the special significance of 7 signifies completion, fulfillment, fullness. Just like with Sabbath, 7 days of the week, the day that the Father rested from His creation, that there are also seven parts of the spectrum of light, and also 7 musical notes making up the scale, and you can do an incredible search on the significance of 7 in the Bible, in the Old and the New Testament, and how it is found so many times, and that it is signifying by the Father, by the Most High God, completion. And so it's my opinion that the Father has put this information and encoded it into the Bible code 7 times to signify completion and fullness and fulfillment of what is the hidden secrets of the Old and the New Testament, and the esoteric knowledge that is veiled within them, that is connected to and tied to the knowledge that Cain was not a child of Adam. And if you click through the different matrices, going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, you will see over which passages and which verses this information is encoded upon. And interestingly enough, the first 2 matrices, matrix 1 and 2, they overlay Genesis chapter 3, where the beguilement and the seduction of Eve first took place, which is tied directly to this information and to this knowledge. Now, if your mind is not blown away by the complexity of this revelation, and it's being overlaid over Genesis chapter 3 and other verses and passages which we'll go into next, and that this matrix is repeated 7 different times within the Bible codes, then truly it takes just something of awesome miracle to astound you. Because the odds of this being random or coincidence is just beyond measure. And so here again, for those that don't believe in this knowledge, or that find it difficult to embrace this revelation, here you have the Most High having encoded this revelation within the Bible codes. And so I don't know how much proof you need. Because if you can't believe this and all of what I've already talked about, you're never going to be able to accept this revelation. All right, let me check the chat room real quick. Okay, good. Yeah, I want all of you to try it for yourself. Don't believe me. And for those that are just listening in that don't have access to the chat room, again, when you get home, when you get in front of your computer, go to BibleCodeWisdom.com. www.BibleCodeWisdom.com. And then I want you to type into the search bar at the very top of the web page, GOAT, G-O-A-T, Esau, E-S-A-U, Cain, C-A-I-N, Devil, D-E-V-I-L, Son, S-O-N, Seed, S-E-E-D, Fruit, F-R-U-I-T, Tree, T-R-E-E, and Tare, T-A-R-E, which are all keywords that are associated to the beguilement. And the fact that Esau, because he gave up his birthright and married Canaanite women, not that he was born of the Cain line, but because he gave up his birthright, and Cain specifically because he was a direct progeny child of the devil, and that both of them were sons of the devil, seeds of the devil, fruit of the devil, and that the devil was the tree, and that the tares are also associated to the Cain line, the bloodline and the lineage of Cain, and that they are also associated to the goats, as mentioned in Matthew. The goats from the sheep, the wheat and the tare. All these keywords are critical to understanding this information and this knowledge. And all of these are found in 7 different matrices connected to this particular knowledge. Which, again, the randomness of that is, it's just mind-blowing. There's no way that that any of us could just do this and make it work. That it would take the mind, the omnipotence of the Most High to be able to do something like this. And it's my opinion that he would only want to do this in order to verify and to prove this revelation for those that are still doubting Thomases. Okay, so now we're going to look at the other matrices that are associated to this information, because each one of these matrices are very critical and also important in reconfirming this knowledge as a whole. That he didn't just overlay them over anything random. That those matrices where these verses are found are very critical and confirm the nature of this revelation. In the third matrix, you will find, and those of you that want to follow along, all you have to do is click up there where it says matrix 1 through 7, go to the third matrix. Know that the first 2 matrices are tied to Genesis chapter 3, which again to me is just mind-blowing, because that is the passages where all of this is connected and linked to. In the third matrix, you will find that it overlays Deuteronomy chapter 33, beginning with verse 8. Beginning with verse 8 and going through verse 16. Now I'm going to just read a little bit about this, and I'm going to try to move fast because I know we're going to run out of time. But in Deuteronomy chapter 33, beginning with verse 8, it begins this and says this. And of Levi he said, thy Thummim and thy Urim are with thy godly one, who thou didst prove at Massah, with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, who said of his father and of his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew he his own children, for they have observed thy word and keep thy covenant. They shall teach Jacob thy ordinances and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee and whole burnt offerings upon thine altar. Bless Jehovah his substance and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise up against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. Of Benjamin he said, the beloved of Jehovah shall dwell in safety by him. He covereth him all the day long, and he dwelleth between his shoulders. So this particular passage is referencing the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep. Like Cain, it says he does not acknowledge his brethren, that his children do not keep the covenant. That's the line of Cain that is being referenced to here. Who said of his father and of his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew he his own children. The line of Cain are those that are excluded, that are not apportioned with the righteous, and those that follow the covenant and the law of Moses. And it says again, smite through the loins of them that rise up against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. Just like it says in Isaiah chapter 14, when it speaks about Lucifer, Satan, being of the abominable branch. The Most High says that he's going to wage war against the children of Lucifer, of Satan, and that he will not allow them to inherit cities. And so these verses are not random. And when we get to the last one, you're going to be really just blown away. All right, the fourth verse is connected to Psalm 1, chapter 33. Again, chapter 33. Isn't it interesting that, the Masons take 33 as their number, the Freemasons, and it's at that level, 33, that they know exactly who they're worshiping, that at that particular level they are told that Lucifer is their God. And so here we have connections to Deuteronomy chapter 33 and also Psalms 1 chapter 33. I mean, there's nothing random about this information. All right, reading just a little bit real quickly, because I want to get to the last matrix before the show ends. So, the book of Psalms, chapter 1, it starts with verse 32 and then moves in verse 33. Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in Jehovah, loving kindness shall compass him about. Be glad in Jehovah, and rejoice, ye righteous, and shout for joy, all ye that are upright in heart. Rejoice in Jehovah, O ye righteous, praise and comely for the upright. Give thanks unto Jehovah with the harp. Sing praises unto him with the psaltery of 10 strings. Sing unto him a new song, play skillfully with loud noise. For the word of Jehovah is right, and all his work is done in faithfulness. By the word of Jehovah were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. He gathereth the waters of the sea together as a heap. He layeth up the deeps in storehouses. Let all the earth fear Jehovah. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. Jehovah bringeth the counsel of the nations to naught. He maketh the thoughts of the people to be of no effect. The counsel of Jehovah standeth fast forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. So again, here you have an admonishment to the weak and to the tares, the righteous to listen to the law and to his commandments and to follow after him. Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in Jehovah, loving kindness shall compass him about. It's the same thing. It's a repeat of Matthew chapter 13, speaking about the wheat and the tares. The fifth and sixth matrix are connected to Luke chapter 8, verse 10 through 19. I'm going to read this real quick, and we're going to finish up with the seventh matrix, because that one is just mind-blowing as well. The fact that it begins with Genesis chapter 3 and ends with what I'm going to tell you about in the seventh matrix is, in my mind, the full summation of all of this information together. All right. Luke chapter 8, beginning with verse 10. And he said unto you, it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to the rest in parables, that seeing they may not see, and hearing they may not understand. Is this not exactly what I just read in Matthew chapter 13? Now, when we go a little bit further, you're going to see allusions to the parable of the seed, which is again connected to Matthew chapter 13. It is mind-blowing how all of this information is connected together. I'm running out of voice. I apologize. Continuing. All right. Now the parable is this, the seed of the word of God. And those by the wayside are they that have been heard, that cometh the devil, and taketh away the word from their heart, that they may not believe and be saved. And those on the rock are they who, when they have heard, receive the word with joy, and these have no root, who for a while believe, and in time of temptation fall away. And that which fell among the thorns, these are they that have heard, and as they go on their way, they are choked with the cares and riches and pleasures of this life, and bring no fruit to perfection. And that in the good ground, these are such as in honest and good heart, having heard the word, hold it fast and bring forth fruit with patience. All right, I'm going to have to read real quick a verse from Matthew chapter 13 to tie this all together for you, because this is exactly what he's speaking about here, beginning with verse 18. I believe it's verse 18. Let me just verify real quick. Oh, no. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, beginning with verse 18. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. This is Matthew chapter 13. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which receiveth the seed by the wayside. But he that receiveth the seed into stony places, the same as he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth, because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he become unfruitful. But he that receiveth seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, by which also beareth fruit and bringeth forth some an hundredfold, some 60, some 30. So there you go. there's no coincidence. There's no randomness. There's no. It's mind-blowing how the Father has tied all of this together. And it is alluding to Matthew chapter 13, because that's exactly where Christ tells us in his own words about the parable of the wheat and the tares. I'm running out of time. I'm going to end this with the seventh matrix. The seventh matrix, again, remember, 7 is the number of fulfillment and completeness. Now, would it surprise you to know that the seventh matrix is connected to Ephesians chapter 6? Yes, Ephesians chapter 6, which many of you are familiar with, because it says, "For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." If you can't see that this is a revelation, a secret that has been hidden since the foundation of the world, you're never going to wake up to this. And I can't tell you any more which could help you to understand. And so I'll read just a little bit, because it begins with chapter 6, verse 2. "Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but nurture them in the chastening and admonition of the Lord. Servants, be obedient unto them that according to the flesh are your masters, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart, as unto Christ, not in the way of eye service as men pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as unto the Lord, and not unto men, knowing that whatsoever good thing..." I just lost my place. "And ye masters, do the same things unto them, and forbear threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no respect of persons with him. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Again, for our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Wherefore take up the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness." And this revelation ends with the last two verses, 15 and 16. "And having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, withal taking up the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the evil one." And so here, my friends, you see that this is the revelation that the Father led me to, in helping me to understand that I was doing his work, and that this revelation is one of his secrets. And so with that, I pray that all of you can embrace it and let the truth unlock the rest of the secrets that are contained and dealt within the Word. And with that, may the Lord and the Father and the Son bless you and lead you in discernment. Good night. God bless.
Serpent had a plan to pollute God's man. Don't say he can't do it. The book of Job can prove it. Can't understand the truth. It became the evil root. Now we see the ancient past, and the rest of us got that. You see, the DNA got cheated.
ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet, it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seeds around, and your DNA's the G, and now you know the mystery.
You think about the family the Bible talks about. Now listen to these verses and learn what it's about. The women of the family that God cared about couldn't have any children without His help, no doubt. They were barren, you see, not 1, 2, or 3, but all 4 and more, and that's for sure. All these women from the tribes had no children in their lives, and here they are by name. Now listen to this theme. We got Sarah and Rebecca, Rachel, Leah to boot, and none of these women could bear any fruit. And new season's down to bring that devil down. God did it with blood, not just mud. The name Adam in Hebrew, it's a root word for blood. It means many things, just one means mud. But the Bible has layers, just like wheat and tares, and we're letting you into the original sin.
You see, the serpent had his seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even. Yes, she surely did conceive, and out came Cain with the Lord God disdain. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet, it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seeds around, and your DNA's the G, and now you know the mystery.
So now you know the truth, that's the devil's type of fruit. Was not the kind for eating, but the fruit for bequeathing. So when Eve was beguiled, she got pregnant and defiled. The new way of life was to work and live in strife. Now the entire human race was headed for disgrace. But the Lord had a plan, He had a son made into man. And that's who we are from a distant planet star, making right what was wrong and to teach it through the song. We are mostly mixed and mingled, not just one group is single. The human race has been infected and it can be detected. It's not the color of your skin or the nation you live in. It's all about the choice. His sheep will know His voice.
You see, the serpent had his seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even. Yes, she surely did conceive, and out came Cain with the Lord God disdain. Ain't it a shame? The seed, it still remains. Yet, it's hard to believe, but if you have eyes to see, and we know it's hard to hear, but once you lend us your ear, the words are written down, and we know the seeds around, and your DNA's the G, and now you know the mystery. You see, the serpent had his seed, and he did an empty deed, and he did it with no even. Yes, she surely did